The security camera at Georgia State Prison caught it at exactly 2:47 a.m. on a humid September night in 2023. A figure approached the eastern perimeter fence, moving with the nervous energy of someone who knew they were crossing a line they could never uncross. The motion sensors should have triggered immediately, but someone had disabled them 30 minutes earlier. Someone on the inside. Correctional Officer James Mitchell was reviewing the footage 12 hours later when he saw it. The figure, small and quick, hurled a black duffel bag over the 20-foot razor wire fence. The bag sailed through the darkness like a meteor, landing in the recreation yard with a thud that should have alerted every guard on duty. But the bag sat there for exactly 7 minutes before an inmate emerged from the shadows, grabbed it, and disappeared back into the cell block like smoke. Mitchell felt his blood run cold. He'd worked at Georgia State for 15 years, and he knew what this meant. Someone had coordinated this from the inside. Someone had created a window of opportunity, disabled security, and arranged for pickup. This wasn't amateur hour. This was organized, calculated, and deeply troubling. He rewound the footage and zoomed in on the figure outside the fence. The image was grainy, but the moonlight caught just enough detail. A young woman, maybe early 20s, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. She moved with purpose but also with fear, constantly looking over her shoulder. After throwing the bag, she ran to a vehicle parked just beyond camera range. Mitchell could see part of the license plate, just enough to run it. Within an hour, he had a name. Kayla Morrison. 19 years old. No criminal record. High school graduate with honors. Currently enrolled in community college studying nursing. Her address was in a modest neighborhood 40 minutes from the prison. Nothing about her background suggested she'd be involved in smuggling contraband into a maximum security facility. But when Mitchell cross-referenced her name with the prison's visitor logs, everything became clear. Kayla had been visiting an inmate named Marcus Webb every single week for the past 8 months. Marcus was serving 15 years for armed robbery and had connections to one of the most powerful prison gangs in Georgia. Mitchell called the warden immediately. "We've got a situation. Someone threw a package over the fence last night. I've identified the suspect, and we need to move fast before that contraband gets distributed." Warden Patricia Cross was a veteran administrator who'd seen every scheme imaginable, but even she sounded concerned. "Have you located the package?" "That's the problem. It's already inside." An inmate retrieved it within minutes. Whoever planned this knew exactly where the blind spots were. Initiate a full lockdown. Search every cell in C block. I want that package found before the end of the day. The lockdown began at 1 p.m. Guards swept through C block with trained efficiency, pulling inmates from their cells, searching mattresses, checking vents, examining every possible hiding place. The inmates remained silent, their faces masks of practiced indifference. They knew the drill. Say nothing. Reveal nothing. Protect the network. But one inmate was sweating more than the others. Marcus Webb stood against the wall during the search, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on a point in the distance. The guards tore through his cell with methodical precision. They found nothing. Officer Mitchell watched the search through the security monitors, frustration building with each empty cell. The package had to be somewhere. It couldn't have just vanished. His eyes widened as a terrible thought occurred to him. What if the package had already been broken down and distributed? What if the contents were already hidden in dozens of different locations, making it nearly impossible to find? He pulled up the visitor logs again, this time looking at every person who'd visited Marcus Webb over the past year. The pattern was obvious once he knew what to look for. Different women, different names, but they all visited on the same day of the week. They all stayed for exactly the same amount of time. And they all looked remarkably similar in age and appearance. Mitchell grabbed his phone and called Detective Sarah Chun from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. He'd worked with her before on prison corruption cases, and she was one of the few people he trusted completely. "Detective Chun, I need you to come to Georgia State immediately. We've got something bigger than a simple contraband drop. I think we're looking at an organized smuggling operation that's been running for at least a year." Sarah arrived 90 minutes later, her badge clipped to her belt, her expression already shifting into investigator mode. Mitchell showed her everything. The footage of Kayla throwing the package. The visitor logs showing the pattern. The systematic nature of the operation. What do you think was in that bag? Sarah asked. Could be anything. Drugs, phones, weapons. With that much planning, it had to be valuable. Or dangerous. They reviewed the security footage from the entire night, tracking every movement in C Block. And that's when they saw it. At 3:15 a.m., roughly 28 minutes after the package was retrieved, an inmate named Carlos Mendez collapsed in his cell. The guards didn't discover him until the morning count. By then, he'd been dead for hours. The medical examiner's preliminary report came back that afternoon. Carlos Mendez had died from a massive overdose of fentanyl. The amount in his system suggested he'd consumed enough to kill 3 people. Sarah looked at Mitchell, and they both understood what they were dealing with now. This wasn't just contraband smuggling. This was a drug distribution network operating inside the prison walls, sophisticated enough to coordinate drops, evade security, and deadly enough to kill. We need to bring Kayla Morrison in for questioning, Sarah said. Right now. But when they arrived at Kayla's apartment at 6:30 p.m., they found the door unlocked and the apartment empty. Clothes were scattered across the bedroom floor. Drawers hung open. A half-packed suitcase sat on the bed. On the kitchen table, they found Kayla's phone, deliberately left behind. And underneath it, a note written in shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. They said they'd kill him if I didn't help. I didn't know anyone would die. Please tell Marcus I tried. Sarah picked up the note carefully, her mind racing through implications. Kayla hadn't just thrown a package over a fence. She'd been coerced into participating in something far more sinister. And now she was running, which meant she was either terrified of the people who'd forced her into this, or she knew something that made her a target. Mitchell's phone buzzed. A text from the prison. Second inmate just overdosed. Still alive but critical. We're losing control of the situation. Sarah turned to Mitchell, her expression grim. This isn't about one package anymore. This is about a poison being systematically distributed through that prison. And Kayla Morrison is either a victim or an accomplice. We need to find her before whoever's running this operation does. But when they pulled the security footage from Kayla's apartment building, what they found changed everything. The footage showed Kayla leaving her apartment at 4:15 p.m., 2 hours before Sarah and Mitchell arrived. But she wasn't alone. A man in his 30s walked beside her, his hand gripping her arm. Not gently. Not like a boyfriend or a friend. Like someone making sure she didn't run. Sarah zoomed in on the man's face. She recognized him immediately. Vincent Caruso. Known associate of the Savage Saints, the same prison gang that Marcus WEBB belonged to. Vincent had been suspected in 3 murders but never convicted. He was dangerous, connected, and now he had Kayla Morrison. She's not running, Sarah said quietly. She's been taken. Detective Sarah Chin stood in the dim parking garage of Kayla Morrison's apartment complex, watching the security footage play on repeat. Vincent Caruso's face was clear in the frame for exactly 3 seconds before he turned Kayla toward a black Dodge Charger with tinted windows. The girl's body language told the entire story, shoulders hunched, head down, moving like someone being led to execution. Sarah's phone rang. It was the prison warden. Detective, we've got a riot situation developing in C Block. 3 more inmates are showing symptoms of overdose. The guards found remnants of what looks like pressed fentanyl pills hidden inside a hollowed-out book in the common area. We're talking about enough product to kill 50 people. Sarah felt the weight of it pressing down on her. This wasn't a one-time smuggling operation. This was systematic distribution designed to flood the prison with lethal drugs. What? Prison gangs typically smuggled narcotics to sell and build revenue. Killing your customer base made no business sense unless the deaths themselves were the point. Warden, I need you to isolate Marcus WEBB immediately. No contact with other inmates. No phone privileges. Complete communications blackout. Already done. The moment we connected him to the Morrison girl, we moved him to solitary. Good. I'm coming back to interview him. And I need you to pull every piece of correspondence he's received in the last 6 months. Letters, money orders, visitor logs, everything. Sarah ended the call and turned to Officer Mitchell. Vincent Caruso doesn't just grab random girls off the street. He was sent to collect her, which means someone higher up the chain knows she's a liability. We're running out of time. They drove back to the prison through rain that had started falling like bullets against the windshield. Sarah's mind worked through the puzzle pieces. Kayla Morrison, a nursing student with no criminal history, somehow gets involved with Marcus Webb. She starts making weekly visits. Then she escalates to throwing contraband over the fence. Now she's in the hands of a known killer. The missing piece was motive. Why would a 19-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her risk everything for a convicted felon? At the prison, Marcus Webb sat in the interrogation room looking smaller than his 6'2" frame suggested. He was 24 years old, but prison had aged him. Tattoos covered his arms, the ink telling the story of his gang affiliations. But his eyes showed something Sarah hadn't expected: genuine fear. She sat across from him and laid out crime scene photos. Carlos Mendez's body. The fentanyl pills. The security footage of Kayla throwing the package. Marcus, 2 people are dead. 3 more are in critical condition. And the girl you supposedly care about is currently in the hands of Vincent Caruso. So I need you to tell me everything right now, or Kayla's going to be victim number 6. Marcus stared at the photos, his jaw working like he was chewing through chains of silence that had been drilled into him since childhood. Prison culture demanded absolute loyalty. Snitches faced brutal consequences. But Sarah could see him calculating whether saving Kayla was worth the cost. I didn't know they were going to kill anybody, Marcus said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I swear to God, I thought it was just phones and tobacco. That's what they told me. Who's they? My shot caller. Guy named Tremaine. He runs the Savage Saints inside here. He came to me about 6 months ago, said the organization needed reliable people on the outside. People who could make drops without attracting attention. He knew about Kayla from my visitor logs. Knew she was young, clean record, in love with me. Perfect profile. Sarah leaned forward. So Tremaine approached Kayla? No. He had his people approach her brother. The revelation hit Sarah like a punch. Kayla has a brother? Tyler Morrison. He's 22. Got himself into some gambling debt with the wrong people. Owed $30,000 to a bookie connected to the Saints. Tremaine's people told Tyler they'd forgive the debt if his sister made some deliveries. Just a few drops, they said. Easy money. And Tyler agreed to sell out his own sister? Marcus's face twisted with anger and regret. Tyler's a coward and an addict. He agreed immediately. Didn't even warn Kayla what she was getting into. Just told her I was in danger, that other inmates were threatening me, and if she loved me she'd help. She believed him because she's good. Because she actually gives a damn about people. Sarah felt the familiar rage that came with cases involving innocent people manipulated by predators. So Kayla thought she was saving you? Yeah. And I let her believe it because I'm a selfish piece of garbage who wanted to stay in good standing with the gang. Marcus's voice cracked. But I swear, detective, I thought it was just contraband. Phones, tobacco, maybe some weed. I didn't know they were moving fentanyl. I didn't know people would die. Who decided to start moving fentanyl instead of phones? That came from outside. Tremaine got orders from someone on the street. Someone high up in the Saints organization. They wanted to flood the prison with product, create chaos, make it look like the guards had lost control. Sarah's instincts fired. Why would they want that? Because there's a federal investigation into conditions here at Georgia State. If they can prove the prison is too dangerous to operate, they can force emergency transfers. Move inmates to other facilities. And one of those facilities is where the Saints have total control. Guards on payroll, contraband flowing freely, the whole institution is basically run by the gang. The scope of it became clear. This wasn't about profit from drug sales. This was about orchestrating chaos to manipulate federal oversight and consolidate power. The deaths were collateral damage, acceptable losses in a larger strategic play. Which facility are they trying to get transferred to? Coleman Federal in Florida. The Saints basically own that place. Sarah stood and paced the small room. Marcus, If Vincent Caruso has Kayla, where would he take her? Probably to the warehouse district off Highway 80. The Saints use an old textile factory there as a meeting spot. It's isolated, no cameras, perfect for making people disappear. If I can save Kayla, will you testify against Tremaine and everyone else involved? Marcus met her eyes, and for the first time Sarah saw something resembling courage. If you save her, I'll tell you everything. Names, operations, the whole structure. I'll burn it all down. Just please don't let them hurt her. She's the only good thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed her trying to save myself. Sarah left the interrogation room and immediately assembled a tactical response team. Officer Mitchell coordinated with local police while Sarah contacted the FBI field office in Atlanta. If the Savage Saints had corrupted a federal prison to the point of orchestrating mass casualties, this was beyond local jurisdiction. Within 2 hours, they had a plan. Surveillance confirmed activity at the textile factory Marcus had mentioned. Thermal imaging showed at least 6 individuals inside. One of them matched Kayla's build and height. The tactical team moved in at 11:30 p.m. under heavy rain that provided acoustic cover. Sarah wore a Kevlar vest and carried her service weapon, adrenaline sharpening every sense. They breached the factory through 3 entry points simultaneously. The interior was a nightmare landscape of rusted machinery and shadows. Sarah's team cleared the first floor methodically, finding evidence of recent occupation but no people. Then they heard it, a scream from the basement level. Sarah descended the stairs 2 at a time, her weapon raised, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. The basement was a maze of storage rooms and old equipment. The scream came again, closer now, followed by male voices arguing. They found them in a room at the end of the corridor. Vincent Caruso and 2 other men stood around Kayla Morrison, who was tied to a chair, her face bruised and bloodied. Caruso held a knife. Federal agents. Drop the weapon. Caruso's response was to grab Kayla and press the knife to her throat. Back off or I open her up right here. Sarah kept her weapon trained on him, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Vincent, there's no way out of this building. You're surrounded. But if you hurt that girl, you go from facing trafficking charges to murder one. Make the smart choice. The smart choice? Caruso laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The smart choice was made 6 months ago when we decided to use this stupid girl to move our product. She's a liability now. She knows too much. She's seen too much. And the organization doesn't leave loose ends. Sarah saw Kayla's eyes, wide with terror and resignation. The girl had been manipulated, used, and now faced execution because she tried to help someone she loved. The injustice of it fueled Sarah's resolve. You want to know about smart choices, Vincent? Here's one. We arrested Tyler Morrison an hour ago. He's already talking. Gave us everything about the gambling debt, the coercion, the whole operation. And Marcus Webb is in solitary singing like a canary about Tremaine and the Coleman transfer plan. Your organization is done. The only question now is whether you want to spend the rest of your life in prison or whether you want the death penalty for killing a 19-year-old girl in front of 6 federal witnesses. Caruso's grip on the knife wavered. Sarah could see him calculating, weighing his options against his survival instinct. She's not worth it, Vincent. She's nobody. Just a scared kid who got pulled into something she didn't understand. But killing her makes her a martyr. Makes her important. Makes this whole case about her instead of about the organization's failures. Is that what Tremaine wants? National media attention on a murdered teenager? The knife lowered an inch. Then another. Then Caruso's partner made a move for his own weapon, and everything exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted in the confined space. Sarah fired twice, hitting Caruso's partner center mass. Another agent took down the 3rd man. Caruso stumbled backward, releasing Kayla, who fell to the floor still bound to the chair. Sarah rushed forward, kicking Caruso's knife away and securing him in handcuffs while other agents cleared the room. She knelt beside Kayla, cutting through the ropes with practiced efficiency. You're safe now. It's over. But Kayla looked up at her with eyes that had seen too much. Is Marcus okay? Even after everything, after being beaten and threatened with death, her first thought was for the man whose weakness had put her in this position. Sarah understood then that the real tragedy wasn't just the physical violence. It was how thoroughly they'd broken this girl's sense of self-worth. Marcus is alive. And he's going to testify against everyone involved. Because of you, Kayla. Because you're going to tell your story, and it's going to bring down an entire criminal network. But as the paramedics arrived and began treating Kayla's injuries, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. It was a photo. It showed Tyler Morrison in his holding cell, lying motionless on the floor in a pool of blood. The text beneath it read, "Loose ends. You should have moved faster, detective." Sarah looked at Kayla, who hadn't yet learned that while they'd saved her life, her brother had just paid the price for his betrayal with his own. Smash that subscribe button right now because this 19-year-old's choice will haunt you. Hit the bell, drop a comment telling me if desperation justifies crime, and let's dive into a case where love and loyalty became the deadliest weapons of all.